Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Round the Fire with Momo show. Today, I'm joined by Phil Carter. He studied history, he was an English teacher, a writing coach, and when you put all these things together, they are a kind of unexpected blend of a solid Bitcoiner. But I believe that he has his own reasons, and I am curious about some of the details of his journey. So, Phil, welcome on the show and tell us about your journey. How did you get into Bitcoin and Nostr? And by the way, this show is the first show of Round the Fire with Momo that is streaming on Nostr right now. Um, so I'm so curious to hear about your journey.
Very cool. Hello to everyone who's watching on Nostr. I'm a big supporter and fan of that. And yeah, happy to be here warming my hands around the fire. What was your question? How did I get into Bitcoin and how come I'm
Yes.
not a
Yeah.
Bitcoiner?
Yeah. And what I am also curious about is how did history, maybe teaching English. I also taught English, but teaching English didn't have anything to do with making me a Bitcoiner. I could imagine how history might make you a Bitcoiner. So I want to know how you got from where you were to here.
Yeah, I see your point that it doesn't make for a traditional technically minded developer kind of Bitcoiner, Cypherpunk, early adopter. I'm definitely more of a Mark II Bitcoiner. I'm like a creative person and I want to spread the message and the ideas of Bitcoin in a way which connects with non-technical people because that's what I respond to, and I think that's something that I can help with. In a way, I think everything contributes to you being a Bitcoiner. I mean, if you'd ask me, like, how does English teaching contribute to being a Bitcoiner? Because the pay is terrible. If I'm lucky enough that I was born in the UK and I can walk into an English teaching job if I, go to live in Mexico or, Indonesia or something like that. So that is a great advantage, but it's not a career, and it's kind of a bit of a parasitic industry. They prey on people who want to travel and don't really need career prospects at that moment. So they, generally the market is all right, let's get young teachers in, pay them enough to live. They're going to have a great time. And after 3-4 years, they'll realize this isn't for me. I'll go and get a proper job. And then we repeat the whole cycle. So I guess that part of that led me to say something's wrong here. I'm working really hard for these students and I really care about this job and I really enjoy doing it. But I'm not getting enough out of it for me to build wealth, for me to enjoy my life more, for me to feel secure. And yeah, those are the seeds that led me to start an independent coaching business and basically say goodbye to, being an employee. This was around 2018, I would say, when online coaching and teaching was starting to take off. And then, of course, during COVID, it really exploded because everybody had to do things online. So suddenly, education and many industries went online. So yeah, in a way, that contributed to me feeling like something was wrong. But I would still say, in 2020, I was a pretty non-technically minded, uh, financially illiterate person. So the real answer for how I became a Bitcoiner is one of my clients was Nico Laamanen, who runs Consensus Network, and the rest is history. I was helping him with his writing. We worked together. I read lots of Bitcoin books. He was a good example of someone who was not pushy, and because he's an old hat in Bitcoin, he sort of knew when to suggest something. And over the months, I got more interested in it, and we ended up working together on a book, 21 Futures. And ever since then, I've just got more and more involved in Bitcoin to the point now where I work exclusively writing for Bitcoin clients and doing editing work. pretty much living on a Bitcoin standard, or I'm certainly moving that way, which is its own challenges. And I've sort of gone from being a secret Bitcoiner to being a rabid maxi who gets very angry with altcoiners. I don't know if we can swear on this podcast. This is
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Nostr, so we
Feel
can.
free to.
Gets very angry with shitcoiners.
Yeah, that's the right term. How did discovering Bitcoin impact your personal philosophy, your view on life? I've heard you you are a proponent of libertarian ideas. Was it before Bitcoin, or Bitcoin made you that?
Yeah, Bitcoin changed my mind on a lot of things. I suppose in my life, I have been all sides of the political spectrum, and Bitcoin certainly isn't like on a political spectrum, but I think it almost pulls the entire rug of the political spectrum out from under you. And all that's left is, if you're being honest, exchanges of value. And, now in my life, I see that, I'm of the mindset that every interaction is a, a, a transaction. That's not to say that I only care about getting paid or I only care about me. In fact, I think when you're honest about that, you are honest about the value that you give and the value that you receive. And if everyone could do that, if every interaction was treated as such, I think many problems of the fiat world would not disappear, but would reduce and would change. So yeah, I mean, reading about Bitcoin, about what it is, and then obviously going down the rabbit hole of economics and money, made me less of a socialist and more of a. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere on the political spectrum now. I don't engage with politics too much, because once you take yourself out of it, you see it's very short-term thinking. It's 5 years governments, and one side hates the other. Oh, as soon as we get back into power, we're going to undo everything you did, and that cycle just repeats. And there are people who are 70, 80, 90 years old who are still stuck in it, thinking, hey, get Obama out, get Trump out, get whoever out, and we'll make it right this time. In every country that I've lived in and been to. So I think I've always been someone who has like a long-term mindset. I don't know why that is, like a low time preference. I think I've had that since before Bitcoin. I'm willing to do years of work and have a goal which is far in the future, unlikely to happen, but I'm willing to put the time in on it. And I think so much of the fiat world is now. It's short-term thinking. If we can get the breathing space to allow ourselves to think long-term, then many of the ideas that Bitcoin encompasses come true, are adopted, and help people.
I was also kind of low time preference, and I could imagine that as a writer, you had a really, really low time preference. You would um, face an empty piece of paper, stare at it, and just write down words and edit them and read them again and edit them, edit out, and until you really do not know whether this part that you have removed is going to be in relation to something else that you have kept in the story, and you have to take some distance from it and do it again. What Bitcoin did to me, I wasn't a writer of big text, but I was a translator of big text, and I have translated several books. uh, I have to admit that writing is more creative than translating. You have to create it from ground zero, but with translation you have that framework, and it is a bit easier. But they are all low time preference activities. What it changed about me, I was still doing these things before Bitcoin, but when Bitcoin came, I became a hopeful life, a low time preference. I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to get paid for this book. This book is going to sell this much, and I'm going to get this money, and it is worth shit. But now I know that if I save it in Bitcoin, it's going to be worth something in the future. So I am less stressed when I am focusing on something that is going to be fruitful in the future. Have you noticed things like that in your perception or in your viewpoint?
Yeah, I think I could give lots of examples. I think I was speaking to Robin Say. I either heard him say this or when I was chatting to him. Yeah, I heard it on his podcast maybe that he said, Bitcoin gave me the confidence that I had something there to take the risk of doing long-term, low-time preference things that you want to build, things that you want to create, like a podcast, like a book, like a bigger project. And I think some things in my life I've been fortunate about, some choices that I've made which allow me to be more free and selective about what I do with my time. And one of those that came about through chance, but also having the conviction to jump in and get involved with was Bitcoin. So it certainly gives me the freedom to choose what to do with my time, which is ultimately what people want. Isn't that what people want? They say they want to get rich, or they want, I just want to be happy. That primarily relies on like doing what you want with your time. So if you can do that, then you should celebrate that you're in a good place.
I really value the work that you are doing in the Bitcoin space and your contribution to the Bitcoin space. As a writer, you are focusing on writing fiction for Bitcoin, and I am an avid serial watcher, a serial watcher, and I am really interested in sci-fi in general. Um, and there were series in which Bitcoin was mentioned or movies. Oh, it was now my turn to drop my mic. For example, one of the more prominent, more repetitive mentions of Bitcoin was in Mr. Robot, but it didn't do it justice. So it was in a world that it wasn't a world in the future, and Bitcoin was being used and was important, and they got the importance of Bitcoin. It was Silicon Valley and some other shows in which Bitcoin is mentioned. Oh, Big Bang Theory.
Mm-hmm.
But they are living their lives, and Bitcoin is just a part of it. But you are talking about Bitcoinverse. How is that different from what we had before?
Yeah, great question. I think all of these mentions of Bitcoin, and when it pops up in a show, it's often a kind of joke, or to show that a character is so deeply embedded in that world. Like you mentioned in Silicon Valley, the character who sort of mints a coin and understands Bitcoin and mines it and stuff is like the most hardcore of the guys in that tech group. How is it different? Yeah, we come at it from the perspective of the stories are not stories in 21 Futures, and this was the project that I started with Consensus Network. It's the world's first Bitcoin fiction anthology, and now it's grown into a much bigger project where we're launching a movie and other things. Yeah, the Bitcoinverse is a bit like something like the Marvel universe, which is like a parallel universe It could be in the past, the future, adjacent to our timeline. It could be in any place, but it imagines that that the characters live in a hyper-Bitcoinized society, and that Bitcoin plays an integral role in the story. But we've said from the beginning that we don't want submissions and stories to be like, oh, this character discovered Bitcoin and now they're rich, or now and this fixed everything, this solved the problem. And we do get submissions which are either, like about Satoshi's origins, or about the kind of stories that we have heard before or imagined before. So we want what ifs which spark curiosity. There's a lot of examples of those in our books where writers have imagined, people mining Bitcoin in outer space, and what that might mean for a situation where communications break down and monetary systems and electronic systems don't work. Suddenly, Bitcoin becomes so valuable that it's you could run an entire planet with it. It also imagines the dark sides, the downsides, the difficulties. I think many of our stories are they always include some kind of element of hope. We have a lot of dystopia stories and dark stories, but it's important for me as well not to just be shilling Bitcoin. That's not the purpose of the books. It's to spark curiosity and interest from probably Bitcoiners. We have a second book as well. I have it here. Financial Fallout. This is our second anthology that came out this year, and that's more general sci-fi and financial dystopia. So really, it's not for Bitcoiners specifically. We hope that lots of people will read and enjoy it, and many of the stories touch on Bitcoin or some of the themes around it. So yeah, to answer your question, how's Bitcoinverse different? It's its own curious world that we hope people will be interested in, yet they'll focus on the characters and the story, not just Bitcoin itself.
Nice. So it is a universe in which Bitcoin has become normalized, kinda. Is that a right characterization of that? Bitcoin is there, and now characters are living their lives.
The stories, I mean, the Bitcoinverse is, I don't know if it existed before I put it in one of our blurbs, but I thought of the word as a way to characterize that Bitcoin plays an important role, or is it, all the stories take place in Bitcoin societies, let's say, but they're not set in the same world or the same universe. They can be individual works from different authors. So really, our anthologies have a theme. The first one was Bitcoin. The second one was financial dystopia, and the stories relate to the theme.
What would Bitcoiners, apart from the book being about Bitcoin, find interesting, and what kind of Bitcoiner audience or non-Bitcoiner audience do you think you would attract with your first book, first anthology?
All kinds, really. I mean, often people always tell me that they prefer different stories. Oh, I love this story, or I liked this story, and they're never the same. I don't think there's a certain one standout story that everyone thinks that's the cool one, or that's what we want to pay attention to, because people who know about Bitcoin, who use Bitcoin, come at it from different angles. Some of them might be more interested in the economic side, some in the very technical side of running a node and like all the different system breakdowns that could happen, and some of them might value the sort of art. I mean, this is another big part of the project is our artwork. All the chapters come with art, and there's more film work, there's more artwork in Bitcoin now. So I think there's quite a lot of crossover and multimedia projects that are happening that people get involved with. I mean, I just at the moment am meeting more and more people who you can't really put your finger on what they do. In the fiat world, it's like, hey, I'm a bank manager, or I'm a teacher. And the kinds of roles in the creative space in Bitcoin don't really rely on one simple job title or role. It's creation of value in all of its different means. So I think the kinds of people who do that, who are creating content on Nostr and sort of writing about Bitcoin and about what's happening and creating art and things like that, they certainly would get the project and find it interesting.
Yeah, I would like to hear in the future that there are people who became Bitcoiners because they were interested in stories and they read your books and they got into it. That would be something that would make me really, uh, that really I am curious about and I would like to see in the future. And you go by the handle of Totally Human Writer on Nostr and maybe also on X. But because I don't give much fuck about X, I haven't noticed it. So, what does it mean? What contrast does it show?
Yeah, this is my kind of second Bitcoin alter ego, the one that pays the bills more than 21 Futures, I have to say. Though I love building 21 Futures, and we've got exciting projects for that coming up. Totally Human Writer is my persona, my sort of name that I write under, and sell services as a ghostwriter. In my previous coaching career, I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn building a digital business. And so I have a fairly good understanding of the benefits of like B2B writing and marketing. Now in 2025, we have so many great new products and services in the Bitcoin space. We have more VC funds, we have more angel investors, we have, companies that are actually building and growing, and they are starting to look for and need content marketing. What I see as like the strength that I can bring that other people can't is writing in a personal way that humans connect with. ChatGPT and Google Gemini and lots of other AI tools can write perfectly good how-to blogs. How to set up a node, how to, what's the difference between a hardware wallet and a software wallet, or a hot wallet and a cold wallet. There's infinite numbers of those kinds of blogs, and you can generate them at the drop of a hat because AI is capable of doing that. They have some value, but really the real value in the B2B space for Bitcoin is building trust for founders, for execs, for developers who are building these products and services, and connecting them with investors, partners, and future employees, maybe supporters. X is very much an echo chamber. If you want followers, you just have to give away some sats or do a funny meme and people will share it. It has its use, and it's gratifying for Bitcoiners to be in that space, but ultimately it's not valuable for businesses trying to build. That's why I suggest LinkedIn, Substack, other newsletters and long form writing that can be used elsewhere as well. You can use it on X if you want, and Nostr. And that writing is the way that you build trust, is by giving your opinion, showing your expertise, telling stories, commenting on news items, things that AI can't do, because that's where the value is. Jeff Booth and many others say everything trends to the marginal cost of production. The marginal cost of production of a blog or a social media post is zero. So the value is going there. But I do want to read about my friend, a developer who's setting up a company. How is it going? How are you doing it? And what do you think about these developments in the Lightning space or in the payment space? That is how to reach out to investors, really, rather than just bombing your pitch deck to a website that nobody's going to look at. So that's my sort of MO for human writing. So I work together with founders and key players at companies to help them craft a message which resonates with real people.
Yeah, you cannot ask ChatGPT how it got into Bitcoin, and ChatGPT cannot tell you about a bad trip. It cannot tell you about personal experiences. It is not a person. It's a collection of so many things, so many words, so many entities. But I am not interested in that. And I know if I ask that question, it's not a genuine answer. But when I ask you, it's a um, real answer, and I am willing to hear that. I think that though we are spending so much time on the social media, and even our dating is based on apps and the internet, it's not we are doing that because we think that it is going to happen in the real world too. It is going to lead into a real connection, and dating apps are a better example of that, because you are using them mostly to meet that person in person, and you are looking for people around you. So the creativity and that personal touch is something that AI is never going to replace. And I can imagine that there are still coffee shops, restaurants. Maybe there are some. We have a vending machine, and we have shops. Though vending machines, you can put the coin and it gives you something. But and you can have the coffee machine, but you also go to a coffee shop to see people sitting next to you doing their job, um, typing on their computer, typing their thesis, writing their books, translating or something, or hanging out with friends. We still need that personal touch, and it is not going to ever go away. And something I am also curious about is your experience on Nostr. Um, how do you think Nostr would shape content creation and microblogging? On Twitter, I cannot really stand it anymore. I I go there, I see that there are posts that have lots of impressions and lots of likes and reshares, and they are one sentence. You read it, you get triggered, you want to comment something, but you really do not get anything out of it. It's like, I'm going to, invest in, sell some Bitcoin to get a house. What are your thoughts? Or convince me otherwise. And most of the things have a kind of template that just gets repeated. And if you do not play by those rules, you will not improve. I failed to understand the game, and I failed to play by their rules. But on Nostr, I am me, and I am getting followers. I am getting zaps, more importantly, and they are actual money, and the best money in the world. And I really write what comes to my mind, and it can be short, it can be long. People will read the long things too. What's your take on Nostr, and how do you think Nostr? We have seen a, the biggest manifestation of it, which is um, an iteration of things like Twitter, but there are so many things that can be built on it. How do you think that it's going to drive content creation, and how is it going to be different from X or something that you have more experience in that is LinkedIn?
So many aspects to talk about there. I agree that the reason that Nostr is interesting is that you can get zapped real value. I think Jack Dorsey and others have said, like, without that, it's not really anything that instantly world changing. But when you send and receive value in micro amounts, which basically isn't possible with fiat payment systems online, it is truly game changing. like you said with X and other social media, algorithms make you dishonest, and you're writing something which is just to get a reaction or to get your content discovered. And that's not an honest discovery method. I can't really talk about it because there is a project which is coming out fairly soon in the summer, I think, this year that I've been working on. I'm very excited about. All will be revealed. It is a tool, and I'm not sure what I can say. I think I probably shouldn't talk about it, but it's something that I'm very excited about, and it will be a blueprint and a tool to change the face of content creation, and Nostr is an integral part of it. Mostly because, as you said, you can get real value, real money from creating content. You can have a sovereign space that you own, your identity, and that you own. The money that comes instantly to you for the value that you create. Other than that, what's interesting is like there will be systems built around content discovery. With Nostr, whatever Apple service you use, has methods where you choose the algorithm and you choose the way that you discover or see content. That will develop into people who curate, people who select the best in the best videos, the best takes, the best memes, the best posts from a very niche area, can become experts in saying, hey, this is worth paying attention to. And they can become part of that, part of a system where they're remunerated for doing that work, because it is work. At the moment, we're sharing stuff on X or on LinkedIn, and we ain't getting paid for it. We ain't getting anything back from that. Really, you lose reputation when you share, because you're not selling your own stuff, your own ideas. You're selling someone else's. So the only currency you get is like a bit of social favor and currency with the person who you're helping out. It's kind of virtue signaling as well, because you might say, hey, I agree with this opinion. But on Nostr, I just feel like what is game changing is everything is based on honesty and value, and that's very exciting to be a part of. If you like low time preference projects, then Nostr is one of them, because I think there are many challenges it faces. It's 10 years behind where Bitcoin is in terms of understanding and adoption. And yet, as you mentioned, there is a swathe of incredible applications the protocol has, which are waiting to be discovered.
I am really eager to know about your project when it is unveiled, so I'll keep an eye out for that to see what you're going to do in the future. Let's get into some of the more general topics that I personally have a big interest in. I am a huge sci-fi fan, and there are movies that I watch and rewatch, such as Metropolis, RoboCop. Since childhood, I've watched this film several times, so many times. Maybe there is nothing I've seen as many times as RoboCop. And every time I watch it, it's amazing. Last year, I was watching it with my girlfriend, and he was passing by a gas station, and suddenly there was a writing under his face, under his monitor, under his display, crime in progress. So they envision the kind of AI that can look at things and get the pattern of crime going on and know that crime is in progress. And it was something that we might have laughed at and we would have liked as a kind of exaggeration that we would allow a sci-fi movie to have, but they are becoming real. I'm as as much as I am so fascinated by them, I don't want. I'm trying my best not to make it a conversation about me and why I'm like sci-fi and why I get what I get out of it. What was that made you interested in sci-fi?
Hmm. Um, I suppose I've watched sci-fi films. I was never a big sci-fi reader, and I even resisted writing it a little bit when I started writing. I'm mostly a short fiction writer for my own projects. I think some of the more vivid stories that I wrote and the more successful stories that I wrote were near future sci-fi, though. There were things which, were what if situations, something 10, 20 years in the future. So that kind of sparked my interest. I think, um, really the idea of 21 Features was to do something new and to do something to reach a new audience. And because of Bitcoin's novelty and technicality, it lends itself to sci-fi probably much better than other genres of fiction. And yeah, it really spiraled from there. I think in the last 5, 10 years, I've read a lot more sci-fi and watched a lot more. One thing that I always say has a great synergy with 21 Features is the series Love, Death and Robots on Netflix, which is an animation anthology. And it really resonated with me because streaming platforms, a subscription service, not network television, made it possible to have an anthology of short animations. That doesn't happen on HBO or on subscription, but it doesn't happen on BBC or on other major networks because it doesn't fit in with advertising. It doesn't fit in with 1 hour programming. So yeah, that really resonated, and I love the show. I'm really looking forward to the next season coming out.
So I will watch that. What other sci-fi books and sci-fi films are the ones that you are the most interested in?
I have uh, read a few cyberpunk novels, like what's it called? It's escaping me the name. Maybe it'll come back to me. Another one I wanted to mention was the sort of first Philip K. Dick. A lot of those books. Ray Bradbury. I think sort of writers in the classic period of sci-fi. I suppose you could say of 50s, 60s, 70s of American sci-fi. There's a great British writer called China Miéville who wrote some very cool sci-fi shorts and speculative, maybe not high concept sci-fi. And yeah, the one I wanted to mention is True Names by Werner Vinge that Max Hillebrand recommended to me, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's like a 1982 novella, the first representation of cyberspace, and it's so vivid and so close to reality, where people can plug themselves into a computer and manipulate real world happenings by manipulating this data, and it's sort of wars that happen, and it's very affecting novella, and somehow, I'm not sure exactly how, but it feels related to current events and AI, modern times. So I recommend that one, True Names by Werner Vinge.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one, and I got to know about it from one of my Bitcoiner friends when he was he had an episode about Satoshi Nakamoto, and or maybe just the creation of Bitcoin, how even the domain .org domain was bought by a gift card that was bought from a store in South America. I have forgotten which country. And
Mm-hmm.
This he started this episode that is in Persian, so it is not accessible to English speakers yet. Maybe AI helps with that. It opens with the beginning of Werner. What is his last name? Hinge.
Vinge with a V.
Vinge. Vinge. Vinge's book, True Names. So it was just maybe one paragraph or two paragraphs of the book that was read on the podcast, and it got me hooked. That was enough to make me have to read the book. That's a solid one, and it is not a huge read and not a long read. Maybe this is the last question I'd like to discuss with you. I'm curious to know what is your writing process and especially your editing process, and do you use tools or do you use just pencil and paper as so many authors do, or do you use computer? How do you do that?
Computer is the answer. I've never been somebody who writes by hand, and I think it's a bit of a tired stereotype to always say writers are sitting in a cafe with like a quill and ink. And if you Google writer, it always comes up as like people sitting under a tree with a notepad and a pen. And that works for some people. I'm just a Google Docs kind of guy. The process is, I suppose, different for like content writing and fiction. I think content writing and non-fiction writing I find much easier because it's practical and there is an end goal. You can easily visualize the end goal and write an outline and fill it out. In terms of what tools I use, I suppose I try not to get too distracted with research and all of the nitty gritty while I'm writing. And I think content, it's easier to dip in and out of it. Let's say you're writing a really comprehensive article or a blog on one topic. Feel like you can come back to it and fill a section in, or do something later without losing the thread too much. Fiction is difficult. I think everyone has their demons of like getting writer's block or not being able to start, or not having the motivation, not seeing the goal. I'm a short fiction writer, so I generally try to plan stories, let them percolate in my mind for a while, and then have some writing sessions where I will go to a cafe or a library. I find libraries very good and inspiring to get the words down, because the part of writing that I hate the most is the writing. Like that's the actual typing part is. With fiction, it's hell because you doubt yourself and you don't enjoy what you're creating while you're doing it. I don't, anyway. The editing part I love. I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad what I wrote often. And with the story, yeah, I'll go through and do several several sweeps. And there's a lot of helpful tools that are becoming just so commonplace, like Grammarly and sort of things as a final check that are so commonplace, almost not worth mentioning. I would say though that I use those tools for corrections, typos, rather than style advice, because the style advice it gives is robotic because it's based on hard-coded rules of like one thing that Grammarly does that winds me up is it is obsessed with saying you can't use the word which, you have to change it for that.
Why?
In many sentences they're interchangeable. You could say there are two brands of cigarettes which I like, or that I like, and they can be interchangeable, but it is obsessed with saying that. I don't know. But yeah, that's generally the process. As a tip as well to people who want to get work done, I organize my working life and my general life in a digital calendar. Like we all have Notion, or that's not calendar, but tools like that, or Google Calendar or iCal. And I find the general terror of having to move blocks of my time around makes me just do the work that I'm supposed to. Oh, I can't move these 2 hours onto a Saturday because then I can't go
Ah.
for a hike or I can't do this. So I generally like block out time to do things, and that helps me to stick to it.
When you go to a cafe or you go to the library, do you go offline or do you stay online and work?
I think going offline is a good idea. I don't, because I use a Chromebook, which sounds like hideously uncool and untechnological. I'm not like a 13-year-old schoolgirl, honestly, but I find it's very simple. Like Chromebook is basically a tablet, a high-powered tablet that's got a keyboard, and if you use Google Suite like G Suite, it works fine. So, but you kind of need to be connected to the internet. So I generally don't disconnect, but yes, I think that would be a good idea. Well, to get yourself into the zone.
So, thank you, Phil, for this time. So for people who want to follow you, where can they follow you? I actually have already included your Nostr pub key in the description. That's the most difficult thing to follow because it's a huge string
Yeah,
of
I'm not
letters
going to read
and
it out. NPub
yeah.
1K24.
Yeah, I
Uh,
have taken care
you
of that. Mhm.
you can follow me for my writing business at totallyhumanwriter.com. You'll find all my links, socials, and my proof of words there. And as for 21 Futures, look for that on. Well, I'll include the Nostr pub key for that too. I'll send that to you, Momo, and on X 21 Futures or 21futures.com, you can buy these wonderful books and check out our film project as well, which we have launched on Geyser, and I'll be going to Bitcoin Film Fest to
Oh yeah, well, I
um,
forgot about that,
chat
man.
about that.
Wow. Wow.
Slip
I
that
said
one in
that.
at the end, but
Oh yeah. Actually, I am going to the Bitcoin Film Fest. So we are going to meet in person.
see you
You
there.
you are the first guest on the podcast I am going to see in such a short time after I have talked to them on the internet. So it's going to be in less than 2 weeks. Yeah.
That's it. We'll be eating pizza together in 2 weeks.
Yeah, or maybe some steak. Great. And just one thing, I have already, as I said, included your Nasser pub key. It's there, your npub. Uh, I intended to have the show on Nostr, but shortly after the show started, I realized it is not on Nostr. So the moment we disconnect, I'm going to stream it there. So unfortunately, it didn't go live, but it's going to be streamed there
There's
right after
always
the
there's
show.
always snags, and we learn, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be interested to see how it works because I'd love to do more things like that on Nostr too.
Mhm. I live by this motto: the more you fuck around, the more you find out. So we will find out.
I've seen that video. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for your time,
Thanks so
and
much for having me on, and
see you at
yeah,
film
keep.
festival. And I will talk to you there, and we will record hopefully something there in person without this yellow line between us.
That's it. I really appreciate your writing, your work, your podcast. So yeah, keep it going, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you in a couple of weeks. Bye.